Welcome to Work World Writing. Today's lesson is called The Basics, and each year my students rate the lessons that I give them, and they always give this one 2 thumbs up. It's a good place to start, and that's what it's all about, is just finding some basic tips to help people begin looking at their own writing. I try not to bombard them with a whole bunch to begin with, just the basics. And so what I always do is give them great sources of writing first, and these are just magazines, newspapers that exist online. They're easy to get to, and they're full of great information. The writing is powerful, it's concise, it's persuasive. It's the kind of writing that they're probably going to do when they get out of school. And so we use these sources instead of things like essays and things we find in textbooks. We try and get real-world authors and real-world sources. So again, I give them a list of sources that I trust. They can go and pick fabulous articles that they find, and then they email articles into me. This is how I start off this lesson, the basics. They email articles to me, and I will just open up the article and start reading it in front of the class. And so this article was sent just today, actually, the same day I made the video. Capuchin monkeys can be spiteful jerks, studies find, and that's from Mental Floss magazine. Another article that was sent in, scientists find evidence for ninth planet in solar system, from National Geographic. Another one about a tortoise, 90, gets wheels for legs after a rat attack. And so right away, we'll start reading these out loud and almost take a step back, actually, and just very broad, what do we see about the writing that we can learn from. And it doesn't take long before students will start making suggestions, and we'll just write the suggestions on the board, make a list somewhere. And usually we start off with something like, sentences start with capital letters, and that's going to be required. Now you got to start your sentences with and they're going to end with something, periods or question marks. And almost everybody, as soon as they start listing these off, they say, oh, an exclamation mark. And then we actually go and look and count them up, and they're fairly rare. And we find that actually it's the word choice, the exciting words that replace the need for the exclamation mark. And so that's something interesting to discover as well. But anyway, we start off our list, and maybe this is it. It depends what grade you're teaching. That might be just the right place to start. But if you have older grades, you can move on. So for those older grades, we might extend the list, and so we might start looking at more ideas about capitalization. We'll read the sentences from the article, and we'll notice that we've got a day of the week that's capitalized. Names of this is something that somebody's written, obviously, and people's names. Eventually, as we read a couple articles, we'll try and come up with some kind of a tip that's very general, and usually it's something like words that are kind of one of a kind. Something that's very unique would have a capital. And then we'll go back and look at paragraphs. A lot of times in school, teachers will say things like, well, your paragraph has to have a certain number in the opening paragraph, and you can't have paragraph that's only one sentence long, or things like that. Well, we'll actually go and start counting the sentences in the paragraphs to sort of create our tip based on the real world instead of what some textbook says. And we get all kinds as we count these paragraphs. Some paragraphs have 3, and some paragraphs have 2, and some paragraphs have 1 sentence, and some have 4 and 5. And so we'll come back to our list and make some kind of a tip based on what we found in the real world. The tip usually says something like anywhere from 1 to 8, and that's just based on reality. So that's what we try and encourage the students to do, somewhere between 1 to 8 sentences. A couple other things that we might look at are leads and titles. So the lead of that first magazine we were looking at was pretty catchy. Capuchin monkeys can be spiteful jerks, study finds. The National Geographic one said scientists find evidence for ninth planet in solar system. And the one about the tortoise said tortoise, 90, gets wheels for legs after a rat attack. And so we'll laugh about some of the titles, and we'll try and write a tip down. Titles should slap. They should grab our attention somehow. Then we'll look at the leads. We'll read them out loud. This lead for the tortoise one says, with approximately 90 years beneath her belt, Ms. T, the tortoise, has just gotten a once-in-a-lifetime upgrade. After a rat snuck into the garden shed where she was hibernating and chewed off her 2 front legs, Mrs. T's owner glued wheels from a model aircraft onto her shell. And we'll try as hard as we can to capture this lead into one word. Is it shocking, or is it stating a problem, or is it a dialogue or something like that? This next one about the monkeys here, humanity's throne atop the animal kingdom is wobbling these days. And so it seems to be talking about a problem. The one about National Geographic, I think, is more of a description. A planet larger than Earth could be hiding in the cold, dark depths of the solar system. Some kind of a detailed description. So I'll throw some words up there. Try and challenge us, or detailed description, problem, or shocking, or dialogue, a question, or a deep thought. These are all just I guess words that a student can identify with, and when they produce a piece of writing, I'll ask them, hey, how did you open your piece of writing? Can you give me a word that describes what you were thinking when you opened your writing? Anyway, all the tips are based on real writing from the real world, and the students have helped me find and create those tips, and so it's a pretty effective way. And so once we create the basics, this list, then I kind of hold the students accountable to that and say, hey, you made the list. You need to follow it. Thanks for listening.